Okay, so this would have helped me a lot. A video on like setting up Ableton, understanding what the hell you're looking at when you first download it and get it. Let's get into this. Just like fuck the intros, man. Okay, when you first open Ableton, okay, maybe have Ableton open right now and just have me in the corner or whatever, so you could like actually fuck with this. First thing, it's gonna open up in this view where it's like vertical. This is probably not what you're used to or what you would expect. This is session view. Okay, there's two views in Ableton: session view and arrangement view. Arrangement view is the one that you're probably like more used to and expecting. Session view is more for like, I mean, you can use it for like creating ideas or like for DJing or for live sets, or you could use it for a million things, mixing. But Ableton, if you click on the tab key like this, then we're in arrangement view. Arrangement view is what you're gonna like mostly be in if you're like producing music and recording. So okay, first thing, now that we're in here, you see over here you've got like this file management. You don't need to worry about that. This area will come into play if ever you have like missing samples that you used in a file and now you can't find them. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna X out of it right now. Okay, here we are. Not sure how your guys' Ableton is opening. Mine, I think it usually opens with 2 MIDI tracks and 2 audio tracks. I like to just have 1 MIDI track and 1 audio track. So here are your tracks, okay? This is a track. Here's another. These are all tracks where you would have stuff on them, like vocals or instruments or whatever. I'm just going to click on one of them. You can click on one of them, and I'm going to delete that. Again, I'm not sure what your guys' shit even has in it, but I just like to have where it's like that. 1 MIDI track, 1 audio track. And you could do this along with me because we're going to save this set at the end as a default set so that whenever you open Ableton, it's always this. Okay, let's start at the top here. So I'm going to go to my preferences. If you go to live preferences, or maybe it'll say live settings, but if you go up to the top left, live preferences or settings, here we got this. First, I'm going to click on the look feel tab. Different people like different ways, different skins for Ableton to be in. You can download your own cool skins. I think it's like abletonthemes.co. I think that's the website, abletonthemes.co. But a lot of them are a little crazy. I'm going to go to theme right here. Most people like this one, dark. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on dark. And for the brightness, I'm going to go up to 200%. Okay, zoom display, this is going to control this. Do you see as I moved zoom display? Controlling how much we see of Ableton. If you're really getting in on something real close, you might want to bring the zoom display up. In fact, for today here, I'm going to do that, but you don't need to do this. You can leave yours at 100. Okay. What else? Audio. When you go to your audio tab here, this is where if you were recording with a mic, audio input device, that's where you're going to choose what mic you have going on. Okay. You can use the computer microphone if you want, but you can also choose whatever you have plugged in. For audio output device, it's what you're hearing Ableton come through. So you could choose like external headphones. I don't have that on here right now, but you could choose headphones, or you could choose MacBook speakers, or you could choose the same thing that you're recording on. And then you could plug your headphones into that thing or speakers into that thing, and then you would hear it coming from whatever your interface is. Let's say you're just using headphones. What you would have for audio output device would be either speakers, MacBook speakers, or headphones, external headphones. The new MacBooks, you only see that it says external headphones if you have headphones plugged in. So if I were to plug them in, you would see that on this list. Okay. Next, for your sample rate, let's go with 48,000. Okay, it's kind of just like an industry standard at the moment until things change. For your buffer size, we can keep that at 512. This is like a beginner video. I'm not going to explain what all of these things are, but I just want you to be set up. You know what I mean? 512 for that. What else here? Okay, here's one. For this tab, record, warp, launch. Let's set some shit in there. For file type, I'm going to go with AIFF. This is just what are the files that are generated by when you record shit. What file type are those in? I'm going to go with AIFF. I don't know why. Wave is probably more popular, but I've just always had it on AIFF, and I'm just going to leave it at that. If you ever want to export your file and send an export to somebody, like a bounce of your song to somebody, you could choose differently then. That's a different area. So for now, I'm going to leave it there. For bit depth, I'm going to go 24. Again, kind of like an industry standard kind of thing. Count in, this is going to be just like if you press record, do you want it to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, record? Or do you want it to, like, when you press record, for it to just start? I like it to just start. So for count in, I'm going to choose none. You could choose what 1 bar, 2 bars, 4 bars. If you want it to be, again, when you record, there's a little bit of runway time before you start. I like it to just start. So I'm going to leave count in at none. Now for this area here, warp fades, let's go with loop warp short samples. I'm going to leave that on auto. For auto warp long samples, I'm going to leave that at on. For default warp mode though, let's change it from beats to complex. Ableton moves things around differently than other programs. Like if you pitch something up or pitch it down, or if you speed something up or slow it down. Ableton operates a little bit differently, and it's got different modes by which that functions. So it's like, what I mean is, if you want it to speed up, and you turn the tempo up of your track, depending upon what warp mode you're in, it'll respond differently. So if you're in beats mode, for example, I like to think of the B in beats mode as like busted. It sounds busted. It sounds like kind of like other programs sound. Like when you move shit around, when you speed it up, when you pitch it up, whatever, it sounds busted. It sounds a little fucked up. Whereas if you go into complex, I like to think of that C in complex for clean. With complex, you can speed stuff up, slow it down, pitch it up, pitch it down, and it's gonna be clean. It's gonna sound literally like you didn't even change anything, usually. So that's what we're gonna leave it on. Create fades on clip edges, we'll leave that to on. And I think we're good in here. So I'm gonna get out of preferences now. Okay, now you're in Ableton. Let's start at the top. So here is the tap button, and what the tap button is it's for you to set a tempo. So you can click on your mouse and it'll set a tempo. So if I go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I pressed pause. It says 113.26. That's because we're not machines, we're people. So when we tap in the tempo, it's not going to be perfect. But you're going to want to click on that tempo right there and scroll either up or down until it matches the nearest whole number. So right now I'm on 113.26. If I click here and then I scroll down a tiny bit, it's going to go to 113, and now I'm in. Right now I'm in a normal tempo that doesn't have decimal points. You always want to make sure that you do that when you tap on stuff. That's for another day, why? But anyway. Okay, so now I'm in 113. Okay, we move over. Here's our time signature. I'm going to skip over shit that I'm not going to talk about in this video. I don't want to over inundate you with information if it's your first time here, like in Ableton. So let's just move on. 4/4. This is your time signature. Okay. If you don't understand time signature stuff, then you can either A, leave it in 4/4, or B, watch a video tutorial by someone talking about time signatures. Okay. I'm going to leave it in 4/4. As we move over, we've got our metronome. This button is whether or not we hear the tempo as we play the song. So check this out. I'm going to press play in the track, which in order to do that, I'm just going to click near the 1, you see how it's 1? That's the first bar. That means it's the beginning of your project. If I click near there and just press play with my space bar, because I have the metronome on, we're gonna hear it as we play the song. So if I had music in here, same thing, we would hear that in the background. I would recommend having it on like mainly when you are producing a song and you haven't put drums in yet. So let's say you're just like messing with piano or a sample or something, but there's no drums, you're not doing drums yet. I would have it on, because a lot of the time what's going to happen is you're going to think that it's a certain thing that you're making, and then you're going to go to add drums and it's going to be all fucked up. And the reason is because you didn't realize that you were not actually in time. So let's leave this on for those situations. Once there's drums in the track, or if you really understand rhythm, like on a basis of like, I know the difference exactly between quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, 30 seconds, triplets, groove, when there's swing. If you are like that, then you could probably just leave this off even when there isn't drums in there yet. But usually leave it on before you start adding drums. Once you have the drums, you could turn it off. Okay, I'm going to skip this kind of stuff right now. At the top, you've got your play button, your stop button, and your record button. These are what would be called like global buttons. It just means that when you press play, it plays the whole track from the beginning. If you press stop, it's going to bring the track back to the beginning. So let's say I was here, right? I just clicked here, press play. I'm going to pause it. If I were to go up here and press stop, it's going to bring me back to the beginning, okay? Then we've got our record button. You can use that for recording anything, whether it's piano that you're playing on your MIDI keyboard, or it's like vocals, whatever it is. But we're actually going to do something else right now. I want you to right click on your record button, the circle at the top. Let's right click on that. When you do, you will see that you've got edit MIDI map, edit key map. Let's click there on edit key map. What we're going to do is we're going to make the record button be the number 3. Okay, so that whenever you press your number 3 on your keyboard, it records. It's a little annoying to go up to the top, and it's better. So I'm going to click now. Now that you're in this key mode where everything kind of turned orange, if you'll notice here, everything is orange and it says key right here. That means you're in key mode, which means you can map keys, which is what we're about to do. So if I were to click on the stop button now, it's waiting. Like, look at the bottom of my screen. It says press any key to assign at the very bottom, or press delete to discard. That just basically means it's waiting for me to tell it what key is going to control it. I want, for the record, I'm going to click on the record. You'll know you're good because it has a little rectangle around it. I'm going to click on there, and then I'm going to press the number 3, at which point something will come up here where it says key 3, blah, 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 and it says the number 3 on your record button. I'm also now going to click on my stop button, and I'm going to press the number 1. Okay? At this point, now that it says 1, 3, I am going to go over to the right here and press key. And that'll take us out of key mapping mode because we don't need to be in it. You can also press Command K to enter key mode or leave it. Okay, so now what this means is that if I press the number 3, it's going to try to record. If I press the number 1, it's going to bring us back to the beginning. Helpful little things to have. Okay, as we move over, not gonna talk about this stuff right now. Okay. Here is our loop button. I'll bring that up in a second. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, right here. This piano at the top right of your screen near the key in the MIDI area, the piano is basically whether or not you want to be able to play your laptop keys and have it play an instrument that you have on your track. So right now, I have the piano on. I like to keep it on always. So if you guys like want to be able to always play your laptop keys, kind of just to demo sounds out and stuff, especially if you're not using a MIDI keyboard, then turn that on right now. You'll know it's on. Everything in Ableton, you know it's on because it'll turn yellow. Now, if I were to play that my keyboard keys, we're not actually going to hear anything right now. If you notice, right now I'm clicking my keyboard keys, you could see it's trying to play something, but it can't. The reason is because there's no instrument on the track. If there was an instrument on the track, we would hear sound. Okay. Now, moving over. Right here is where you can switch between views. Session view, what we started in, and arrangement view. I can also click tab to do that. Okay. Now, here is a track. What you see over here depends on what's going on with these little bubbles right here. Pressing these bubbles doesn't change anything in your file except for how you are viewing shit. Like right now, you'll see you've got I-O as a little bubble, then R, M, and D. Unless you are recording something, like unless you are doing something where you need to record, you don't really need the I-O on. That I-O stands for input output, and it means if I turn it off, do you see what changed about the screen there when I turn it on and off? It's showing me this. This is where I would set, like, you know, number 1 or number 2, whichever input I have my mic plugged into so that it can pick up the sound on that track. I don't need to see that right now, so I'm going to turn I-O off. Now, here is the mixer. Let's use our audio. I'm going to use the audio track here to explain the mixer, because since we don't have a sound on this MIDI track, we can't see some of the stuff in there. I'm just going to use this audio track to explain. So for this audio track, what we've got here is our mixer. We wouldn't see this if we went over here and turned the M off. We wouldn't even see it, but there's never a situation where I don't want to see it. Honestly, most of the time what I've got going on here is like the R and the M are the only things that are on. The D stands for something else, track delay, for another day. Leave it off. Okay, for this audio track, for our mixer, what we've got here is, here's whether or not the track is being heard. This is basically like a speaker on, speaker off. So if I click on the number there and it's no longer yellow, that means that whatever's on this track, we're not going to hear that. It's like a mute or an on if I turn it back on like that. Next to it is solo. This means if I click on that and it turns blue, that's the only track I'm going to hear. Let's say I had 94 tracks in here. I'm only going to hear this track right now because I have it on solo. If I go and click on another track solo, it's going to switch. If you're coming over from Logic, if you were using Logic and now Ableton, that might be confusing because I believe Logic like adds them. So like essentially it would be like this. Like check out how I got no solos. Now I got this solo. I think in Logic, if you were to go over to this solo and turn it on, it would do that. You see how when I turned it on, both of them are on? In order, if you ever want to do that, like let's say you have 90 tracks and you want to hear like 4 of them together, you have to hold Command and then you can press your solo buttons and it will add them instead of switching them. Okay? Okay, moving over, here is our record arm. You might be like, why? What's that? Record arm if you had me set the number 3 so that it like presses record up here. Two different things. Ableton doesn't know what you want to record unless you tell it. So you need to, like, you might have a bunch of tracks in here. You need to tell it, hey, this track right here, the one I'm turning on and off, this is what I want you to record if I were to press record. Does that make sense? So it's like, I've got the number 3 mapped to be the record button. So if I press 3, see that? It's recording on this track because it's record enabled. It has its record arm off. If I turn it off, then I press number 3, it's not turning red here anymore. It's not recording shit. Because Ableton is like, what do you even want me to record? You got a bunch of tracks in here. What are you talking about? So you need to tell it, this is what I want you to record right now. Then I can press 3. And here we are. We're recording again. You can know because the whole track turns red like that. Okay, underneath that we've got our volume. This is the volume of the track. Okay. I just brought it down, but now I want it to be back to 0. If you ever want it to be back to 0, just reset it. You could double click in the little volume area right here. Double click, it'll go back to 0. Same thing with the panning. Whether or not you're hearing your track only in the right speaker or only in the left speaker, you can click in there and move up or down. Okay? If you ever want to go back to just center, you can double click right here. Double click, and it says C for center. When you push it a little bit like this, where it says like 824R, that means it's like mostly being heard in the right speaker only. Right? So this is a mixing thing. It can be fun to make stuff go like right speaker to left speaker, or right, left, or whatever it is you want to do. This is how you would do that. And I'm gonna go all the way now, and it's at 50R. 50 is the max. That means it's fucking heavy in the right. That's all. We only hear it in the right. You understand what I'm saying? Or only in the left. Now I'm gonna go back to normal, which double click. We're back in the center. These right here, I'm not going to tell you exactly what they do for another day. Well, I'll tell you. They control your return tracks. These are sends. They control your return tracks. Too much for today. So don't worry about them. What I will tell you is whenever you see INF in Ableton, it means minus infinity. It means nothingness. Okay? So like, let's say I wanted my track to be nothingness volume, just absolutely nothing. I would need to go to my volume. If I go all the way down, look at this. Boom, 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 bah, bah. Look at that. As I got to the end, now it says minus INF because it's telling me infinity, nothingness. Infinity is also everythingness, isn't it? That's definitely for another day. Now, I'm going to bring that back to 0. Okay, that's your mixer. Okay? Let's go ahead and do something real quick. For your MIDI track, I want you to right-click on the track, okay, here. Whenever I say like click on the track or whatever, I'm not talking about like in here. I mean like right on the square of the track. Boom. Let's right click on it, and if you go down, you could choose a color. Okay, let's choose a color because again you're going to save this as a default set so you could open it whenever. I'm going to choose blue. Same thing for my audio track. I want to right click on that audio track and I'm going to choose a color. I'll choose pink. Okay, now down here is your return tracks and your master. If you're not using your return tracks, you can turn off the R on the side of the screen here. I'm going to turn off the R. I don't need to see that. So here I've got my master track. If you open it up by clicking on its little arrow, you can see it better. The master track is essentially just going to show you everything, the volume of everything that's playing in your song. So if I want to turn up my whole song, I can click on the volume of it, turn it up or down. If you ever want to know what your master track is reading, like the exact level of it, you can always click on tab, and then in the bottom right of that grid, it will show you right here how loud your track is. If you get past 0, that means you're clipping, peaking. You don't want to get past 0. So yeah, I'm going to click on tab again just so we're back here. Okay, let's move over here. This is your browser. This is like the fucking control hub of Ableton. This is like where everything goes down, boy. All right. So let me just degenerate myself out real quick. Really got to stop this. Yikes. Okay. So, my friends, up top here, this is your search bar. Okay? You could type anything into here. I'm going to type in 808. Now, I typed it in. Everything went away. There's a reason for that. Do you see how vocals is selected right now? I'm going to need to go down and click on all results. If I click on all results, oh shit, there's the 808s. Okay, so if you're ever like, I searched for some shit, I can't see it, it's nothing. Make sure you click on all results, which if I X out of my search bar here, all results isn't even going to be an option anymore. Okay, all results only applies to if you are searching for something. You can search for anything. Plugins, fucking patches, fucking sounds, instruments, samples, anything. Okay, there's 3 main categories. You've got collections, categories, and places. Okay, collections, categories, places. I like to think of collections as like my little go-tos. Like, let's say that I know I want to, like, there's some main synths that I like to usually use. I can make a little thing here called synth that has the synths that I usually like to use. Same with vocals. Here's the plugins that I usually like to use on vocals. Okay, I've got little folders here. If you want to add a folder, you can go to next to collections. It says edit. If you hover your mouse over there, it says edit. You can click on there. And there you've got which ones you want to see, which ones you don't want to see. Okay, that's collections. Not that important of a thing. You could go your whole career without ever using collections. Unimportant. I'm going to move down. Here's the main shit. You've got categories and places. Categories, for all intents and purposes, think of it as Ableton's shit. Think of places as my shit. Okay? In future videos, I'll always be saying, like, let's go to the my shit category real quick. What I'm saying is, go to places. Places is my shit. This is where your shit lives. Your samples. Your fucking stuff. Under places. Now, Ableton's shit, it's mostly Ableton shit. Some of it is going to be yours in here, but the Ableton shit category is different. So let's go over that category real quick. For sounds, this is where you're going to find instruments. The instruments that Ableton comes with, which are often referred to as stock sounds or stock instruments. They are pretty garbage. I'm going to be honest. If you're just learning Ableton, by all means, fuck around with these, okay? You've got, if you click on sounds, it's going to be all these different instruments, all these categories now of instruments. I've got this, a bunch of different stuff. You can hear what the thing sounds like by just clicking on it once, okay? If I click on it, I can get a little demo of what the shit sounds like. If I ever want to drag a sound onto a track, first of all, sounds only go on MIDI tracks, okay? So we've got a MIDI track and an audio track in here. If I try to drag this sound onto my audio track right now, I'm clicking on it, dragging. Do you see that? It won't let me. But if I try to drag it up here, look at that, it's going to let me. Boom. Now, because we've got our keyboard icon on at the top, if I were to play my keyboard keys, we'll hear something. Because there's a sound here. This is where your sounds live, at the bottom of the screen. Once you've added a sound, it lives at the bottom of the screen. Okay? I'm going to click on its heading. Okay? Right there. Click on its heading and press delete. Now we don't have a sound. If you ever want to undo, that's just Command Z for undo. Okay. Now, these are Ableton's instruments again. I'm going to skip drums for a moment and go to the instruments folder or category. For instruments, you might be like, why? What? Okay, if sounds category is the instruments, what is instruments category? While you can access Ableton's sounds, the instruments, under the instruments category, what it really is a category for you to create your own instruments. Okay? All of the sounds, the instruments that are in the sounds folder in Ableton, all of those have already been created for you. They're presets. They're stock sounds. They've been created for you using the instruments in the instruments folder. Okay? You use something like analog. If I drag that on a MIDI track, I use this thing to create a sound. Okay? So if I were to open up the analog folder, you're going to see similar categories to what was in the sounds folder. That's because it's showing you anything that the developers of Ableton created using this particular instrument maker or synthesizer, right? I'll close it back up. All of these are how you create instruments from scratch, okay? Probably mainly what you're going to be using in here is going to be drum rack and simpler. Not sampler, but simpler for another day. Let's go to the drums category real quick. In here, you've got three main things. You've got a bunch of these things that say ADG, and those are drum kits. You've got something called drum rack, which is also accessible by going to your instruments. You've got drum rack right there. Back to drums. You've got drum rack, same shit as what was in instruments. And then you've got drum hits, which if I open that up, those are single samples. Ones that come with Ableton. Now, because I use my own sounds, that means I don't use these drum kits. Okay? I don't use them. I also don't use drum rack because whenever I want to use drum rack, I just go to instruments. That's where I get drum rack. And again, I have my own samples, so I don't use drum hits, which means this category is null and void to me. It may be for you as well. I literally cannot remember a time when I have ever clicked on drums for the reasons I just explained. So, let's move on. Instruments. Here's audio effects. Audio effects is where you're going to change the way your sound sounds. These are, for all intents and purposes, plugins. You could think of them as stock plugins. It's what Ableton comes with. Now, I told you Ableton's stock instruments, which we can find under the sounds category, are fucking trash. Most of them. Except for, I still to this day use this one called Basic Sub Sine. There's one in there called Basic Sub Sine, which we could find by searching Basic Sub Sine, and then boom, look what came up. Oh shit! There she is. I use that. I also use Grand Piano, just as a way to get ideas. Other than that, I don't really use them. However, the point of why I just brought you back there, because in audio effects, while these things are also stock things that Ableton comes with, they go fucking hard. It's not like the sounds category, okay? And honestly, the sounds category may be the only place that Logic has Ableton beat, in my opinion. Logic's stock sounds are better. But, like, I don't even think you guys, like, I would not recommend using stock sounds anyway. So it's like the only thing that Logic beats Ableton in, I don't use, so, you know, fuck. The question is then, what would you use? What you would use is like synthesizers. You would use like something that just is designed to make sounds, right? Like Ableton isn't designed to make sounds. Logic, it's not designed to make sounds. It's designed to make music with a bunch of sounds. So it's good at that. So if we get something that is designed to make sounds, then it's going to kill it in the making sounds category. So I've got a couple of things in here in my synth folder. Any of these are great. I think that if you just want a library of sounds, different sounds, I would get Omnisphere. Okay? It's a good go-to. You could also get Contact, but there's a bit more of a learning curve maybe there because you need to download little packs for it. I would just get Omnisphere. Okay? You don't see it on here because I have it on my other computer here. Now for audio effects, these are all the ways you're going to change the sound. EQ, dynamics, drive and color, a really fun category. All this different stuff. For another day, I'll go into that. But just for now, understand that audio effects is where you're going to grab something, put it onto a track, and change the way that shit sounds. Okay? MIDI effects is where you're going to drag something on and you're going to change the way that it's being played. So not like the way it sounds. Now, it will affect the way it sounds, because if you change the way something's being played, it affects the way it sounds. But there's a difference. It's like MIDI effects is where you affect the way that it is being played, right? Like, do I want to add a chord on top of this one note I'm playing? That would be something I could do in MIDI effects. Do I want to make it so that I am playing a chord right now, and I want it to go dun 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 and play all the notes that I'm playing in my chord as like a little like sequence, right? That's called an arpeggiator, and that would be right here, arpeggiator. Lots of shit you can do, but If you're just trying to affect the sound of something, you would go to audio effects. MIDI effects, different kind of thing. Now, Max for live, this is where you can kind of essentially create your own plugins, create your own MIDI effects, create your own audio effects. Gives you the option for that. It's an advanced thing. Not for today at all. Plugins. If you have any plugins that you've downloaded, right? Like let's say you've got a different synthesizer that you've downloaded. You've got some kind of EQ or some kind of effect that you've downloaded. That's where it would be. It would be under the plugins category. Okay? So if I open that up, you're going to see a bunch of different plugins that I have downloaded. Right? Lots of them in this folder. Okay? If you're just getting started on Ableton, you may not have any of those. You'll get those later. If you're moving over from another DAW, well then first of all, probably most of this the way I'm speaking right now, the whole video is probably sounding like, I'm not a fucking baby, bro, just tell me how it is. But like, this video is supposed to kind of be like for both people who are shifting over and need to know how to do what they do in Logic, now in Ableton, or for people who literally are just starting. So either, fucking, I don't know. Anyway, clips, samples, these areas under samples is going to be where Ableton has a bunch of different like little sounds you can use. These are different than the sounds category because these are things that you are going to... It's a long story. It has to do with like drum rack and simpler and those things we were talking about. It also has to do with just chopping and sampling. Just know that for now, the samples folder has a bunch of different, like what we would call one-shots, usually. I think there's loops in here as well. A one-shot is just when you strike something. A loop is when you strike it and it plays a whole fucking thing, right? These are mostly one-shots, okay? Clips is going to be where there are like stuff that's already been played for you. So like if I take this right here, okay, and I drag it onto a MIDI track, look what it just gave me. It gave me something as though I played it. Those are notes in the piano roll. Probably a good time to mention the piano roll. If I double click right here, I've got my piano roll. You can go like this on your mouse keypad area and it will zoom in. I don't usually do that. I usually actually use the magnifying glasses, where you'll find them is over here on the left and on the top. Okay, so I'm zooming in by clicking and scrolling down and up. And then over here, I'm zooming in by clicking and going left or right. Okay. I'm going to go over that another day. I just kind of want you guys to get the idea of the layout of Ableton for now. So anyway, clips, samples. I don't use clips or samples. Honestly, out of this whole area, all I ever really use is instruments, audio effects, MIDI effects, plugins. That's really it. Sometimes grooves. Grooves is a fun thing. Definitely for another day. Same with templates. Let's worry about that another time. Or I could tell you. It's basically just where if you've made any templates, like let's say you make country, but you also make trap, you also make rock, you also have a podcast. You could have like little templates so that basically when you open Ableton, it's already set. It's got all the kind of tracks you want ready to go. You know what I mean? Okay. Now here's the My Shit area. This is mainly where you're going to drag folders of stuff. You're going to drag them in. So like, let's say that you had a folder of a bunch of different drums that you downloaded from like Reddit, or maybe you got some shit from Splice and you got a little folder going. You would drag that folder straight from your downloads into this area, and now you just have it sitting there. I don't have any shit right now because I just got this computer, but like you would have it sitting there, and then when you click on it, over here is where you would see all the shit that's in that folder. Then you can drag that shit into your project. You know what I mean? This is a great area. So that's the My Shit area. Again, Ableton's shit, My Shit. Okay. I'm trying to think of what else is important for you guys to know. I guess I'll real quickly show you how to access the piano roll, because maybe after this video you want to just get to it, start playing. I'll get more in depth in this in another video, but all you're going to do is on a MIDI track, which this is a MIDI track, it just says one analog because if I double click on it, you'll see, remember from, I dragged something in here to show you guys. I'm going to click on it, delete it. Now it's just going to back to saying MIDI. It's always a MIDI track, no matter what. It's just, it said analog because that's what was on the MIDI track. Now that it's gone, it just says MIDI, and I'm going to go over here, and if I ever want to create piano roll so that I can draw notes, I'm going to click, drag the amount that I want. You can always change it later, but let's say I want this right now. This is 4 bars. We know that because at the top it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? You're going to press Command Shift M. Command Shift M. And that's going to make it so you've got a piano roll here. Okay, and now I can draw. Okay? The exact mechanics of how to draw this shit and how to do fun stuff, we'll deal with in a video more specifically about that. Okay? If you're ever wondering where it is, right? Like you click on the track, where's my piano roll? I thought I made one. I click even on this area. Where the fuck's my piano roll? You gotta double click on the actual heading of that thing, right? So if I double click in here, nothing's gonna happen. If I double click on here where the hand comes up, I'm back to my piano roll. Okay? Overall, I think that's mostly it. Up top here, I guess, you've got the magnifying glass. This will scroll in and out of your project, zoom it in. You can also do that by going like this, like on your mouse pad area. And I guess last thing, let's say that you want to hear something on a loop. You're just going to click the amount of space that you want to loop, right? So I'm selecting the space. I want this amount to be looped so that basically when I press play, it goes and then it starts back over. Okay? You select the space and press Command L. Okay? So now watch here. If I press play, when it gets to the end, bah, we're back there. You could turn that off by going up to your loop button right up here. Okay? And I could turn that off. So at this point, guys, I'd say let's just save this so that you've got this set kind of saved the way you want it. If you did play with that tap button earlier when I was showing you, why don't you just go back to the tempo there, click in there, type in 120, enter. Bring yourself back to 120 before we save. That's just sort of the default tempo that programs usually come in. So let's have it at that. I think we're good. Yeah. Let's go to File at the top, File, and you can do Save Live Set as default set. Got a bunch of save options, which we'll talk about another day. And let's just click on Save Live Set as default set. It's going to come up here once you do that. It will say like untitled.als. Great. We're good. You could press enter. Now, if you close Ableton, open it back up, the shit that we did, all the little settings we did, they will be saved for you. All right, that's it for today, my friends. So, yeah, hope that was helpful. That would have helped me a lot when I started. So that's it. See you next time.